So when I first unboxed and checked out the Cube iWork 5X, I was really impressed with the build quality, and it is still impressive. This is the best build quality by far, and has a lot of features on it that I really do like to see in a Apollo Lake notebook. But unfortunately, after 6 or 7 days of testing, there's a bit of a problem that cropped up with the battery, that it doesn't seem to want to fully charge, but more on that later. But the design of it is really nice. As you can see, it's all metal. It is on the heavy side, so this comes out to be 1.67 kilos, almost 1.7 kilos. That's a good 400 grams so heavier than other models I've seen running the same chipset in here. So as you guessed, it's the Apollo Lake N3450. It's got only 4 gigabytes of RAM, so not the 6 that we have been seeing lately on other units. 64 gigabytes of eMMC 4.5 spec storage, and it does support a SATA 2242 or 2260 SSD inside. So what is great about the design is it not only has a touch screen, as you can see, you can lay it completely flat, but you can reverse it around into that of a tablet really, but of course a heavy tablet at 1.7 kilos. Now holding it in the tablet mode, you will tire out quite quickly after a while, but at least it can be done. I myself use it more, I would say, in the presentation mode, which is like so there, and that's probably a little bit more practical, I feel, to do this, so you can use it then like a tablet that's docked into a stand. But using it in this presentation mode and as a tablet, there are a couple of issues here and complaints that I have. The first one is the power button location, that you can accidentally tap that a lot of the times. Even just moving the laptop around, I've tapped it. So I have solved that myself by setting in the power options menu of Windows 10 there, to make sure that that power button does nothing when pressed. So I have to shut down using the start menu and not the power button. So that's been solved. Another thing is that when you have the screen at this angle here, anything less than that, you'll see it will actually start to drop down under its own weight. So the hinge can't really support the whole weight of that. But I mean, it's not too bad. But when you start to tap on the screen, that's going to happen. And the other one is that not 100% of the time that when you do use it in this way, that the keyboard will disactivate. So it won't actually register any touches there when it's flipped around. Now it's not doing that, and then the touchpad is completely disabled there. But I've noticed that it's not always working 10 out of 10 times. It seems to work, or sometimes there's a delayed reaction to it. That when you put it back, that it will take at least 5 seconds for it then to disable the keyboard and touchpad. So for me, by far, one of the best features of the iWork 5X is this right here. It is a Type-C port we've got on there, and it is a proper Type-C port. And what I mean by that is it will charge, have data, and video out up to 4K 30Hz all at the same time from this one port, which is great. Now, but I have noticed that the charge rate from this port is only around 5 watts. So it seems to be only accepting about 5 volts to charge through this and not 12 volts. So that's a little bit of a con there, that depending on what you're doing, it won't actually charge too well. And on the DC jack, which I'll show you in just a second, it will charge at around 15 watts, the charge rate. So 3 times faster at the proper 12 volts, 3 amps. Here we have a micro HDMI and then a full-size USB 3 port that will power external hard drives. So the DC port, 3.5mm headphone jack, that also outputs clean audio and reasonably loud. I mean, it's not the loudest. I'd probably like it to be a little bit louder, but it's great that it has no static over it. Another USB 3 port, again, powers external hard drives, and then our micro SD card slot, which runs at USB 2 speeds, and it does sit in there nice and flush, so those SD cards, your expensive ones, should not pop out or be damaged and broken, and you shouldn't lose them. Now the touchpad is great. This is a precision touchpad. We've got full gesture controls. It is accurate, it's nice and sensitive, and you can tweak up the speed, well, the sensitivity on it to your own liking there. And I really do like this. This is such a step up from the likes of the EasyBook 3 Pro's touchpad and most of the touchpads we find in this cheaper Chinese tech. Now the keyboard, in my first impressions and unboxing video, I said that it was really good. I did like it. And it has no flex. It is really, well, there's a tiny little bit there, pressing down super hard. It's really good to type on in that regard, that there's no bounce, there's no flex. I noticed that the key travel's a little shallow. I would like it to be perhaps a few millimeters more. It was 0.0 millimeters more, I should say there. But I have noticed that sometimes the keystrokes, for example, on my A button, aren't registered every time. So out of 10 times, it'll work maybe 9 times. That is a slight annoyance. So the build quality, I feel, is a little bit up and down on this with the keyboard, which is a real shame to see. Hopefully this is just a first batch issue, just like that issue with the battery, which I'll talk about later on. So our screen on here is covered with glass. It's touched, as I mentioned in the beginning, so it will support 10 touch points. Now it's non-laminated, so there is a bit of a gap. It's about 1 millimeter, but it doesn't bother me on this laptop here because they haven't, well, used a screen protector to start with, and the glass that they have used is very transparent and clear, so you don't really see it. Now touch accuracy is really good. It's a Goodix touch panel, and really no problems with it whatsoever. I haven't had any difficulty touching things, probably aided by the fact that it is 13.3 inches. Now the IPS panel, of course, is 1080p. It has deep blacks, reasonably good colors. It's leaning towards cool white a little, but overall I feel a very nice panel. Maximum brightness comes out to almost 300 lux. It tops out about 294, 95 I registered. But I really do like this screen. It's one of the stronger points, I would say, of this particular notebook here. So the laptop came with Windows 10 in Chinese, and I had to install Windows 10 all over again. I made a backup of the drivers. Now you see here that it does say pen and touch, so it will support a digital pen. Unfortunately, out of the 6 or 7 active styluses I have, not one of them will work. I cannot seem to find it and source it from anywhere. Not even the seller that I bought this from on AliExpress has a clue as to what actual stylus it uses, which is really disappointing from Cube to actually release this device, and it doesn't seem like they have the stylus available. So you can see that the Windows is reporting that we've got only 3.84 gigabytes available. That's because they've dedicated a little bit to that Intel HD500 GPU. Now it will activate, so when you do your Windows install in English, if you have to do this, make sure you use Windows 10 Home, and if you run into problems, just go through the troubleshooting there with the key. So it might come up and say it cannot activate it. Run troubleshooting and it should activate it as a digital license. So looking here at the Geekbench 4 score, you can see these scores, they're actually higher than normal. So these are quite good scores for the Celeron M3450. So you can see there. Now it has 4 cores. Maximum turbo is 2.2 gigahertz, and a very good score there. Now having a look at this is the SATA 3 drive that I installed. So this is a Transcend 256 gigabyte one, 22 by 42. Proper speeds there, so it's running at the full SATA 3 speeds. That port has not been reduced. Well, I've seen on some units they didn't actually run at the full speed, but no problem with that. So the internal eMMC drive is 4.5 spec, that Toshiba, the Series 64G93. Now battery life, like all of the Apollo Lakes, is very good on this laptop. The battery, we've had a look at the internals and it's 38 watt hours. And you can see here that I've done almost 5 hours and it's down to 52%. That's from 100. I have been running the brightness at 25%. So if you run it about 50%, then you can get around 7 hours, 25%, 8 hours plus, which is really good. Sadly, a rather major problem has reared its ugly head here, and that is on my 5th or 6th day of use. The battery will no longer charge beyond 50% for some reason. So this is a battery, I believe, calibration problem that I've seen before on the likes of the Atom Bay trails. So what happens is it's only going to charge itself to 50% because it's only detecting one battery cell. And I did notice that when it was full at 100%, that at around approximately the 50% mark, the battery would then suddenly be reported to have only 7%. So I do believe a BIOS update could fix this. Perhaps it's an issue with the first batch, but it is a rather major issue here that I'm not too happy that I have this on my unit. So the loudspeakers, they sound a lot better than the typical poor, crappy speakers we normally get on these devices out of China. And there's a reason behind it, because they have actually used 4 speakers in here. So 2 for the left channel and another 2 for the right channel. They're located just here. And I'll give you a short sample of just how they sound. So as you can hear from that the sound quality is a lot better. It's just a lot richer, more mids in there, tiny bit of bass as well, and some decent volume at 88 decibels max. But I have noticed that at 100% volume, you will get a little bit of vibration and distortion from those speakers. So it pays to really put the volume up to about 95, 90 max in order to avoid that. Now quickly touching on the camera quality that we get from that front-facing webcam, that's the only camera that's on there of course, is really quite good. It's not bad, I have no major complaints as long as you're in good lighting. So if you do this in low light, it's not going to be great. Now if you record using the Windows camera app, then the frame rate comes out to be about 15 frames per second. But as you can see here, it's not too choppy. Overall, it's not bad and better than what I have seen in some of the other laptops I've reviewed. So onto gaming performance. This is a Windows Store game, Asphalt Extreme. And right now, it is running, I'd say, just below 30 frames per second. It's perfectly playable, but it's just not as smooth as I would like it to be. Now, of course, I could lower the desktop resolution and set the visual settings to the lower setting, but I've just played it with the default. So it's 1080p default settings. You're able to game on it. So let's have a look now at two other games. We'll start out first with Counter-Strike, and then we'll check out League of Legends. So this is running 800x600 lower settings and hovering around 30 frames per second, which is good. I haven't applied the power limit tweak. He walked into that one, which will probably give us another 10, 15, even higher actually, if I do apply that tweak. Now there's a video of how to do that, and it's a simple memory edit that will increase the power limits, allowing us to almost double the frame rate on some games. Oh, I should have been able to shoot him then. So I think this is enough time looking at my bad gameplay. Let's have a look at League of Legends now. So perfectly playable, which is good to see. And again, if you increase the power limits, you can probably almost double the frame rate. However, it will come at the cost, of course, of reduced battery life and increased temperatures of the CPU. Speaking of which, let's have a look at them now and see just how hot it's getting. So I've still got the game in the background there, and after now almost 30 minutes, 70 degrees is the max there on the CPU, and 70 also on the GPU. So great thermals here on the iWork 5X. So this is probably one of the better ones in terms of build quality, definitely, that I have looked at, that's powered by an Apollo Lake. The quality of this laptop is premium. Okay, we've got some minor issues with the keyboard, that sometimes the A key for me doesn't seem to register. At least it doesn't work 10 out of 10 times, which is annoying, of course. Now the touchpad on it, this is really good. Do love using this touchpad. It's so much better than what I'm used to, the average, kind of below average, poor quality ones we get on these Chinese devices. This is a huge step up. You can control the gestures as well, which makes it a joy to use. I love the fact that it has that Type-C port on the side there, so I can connect up my monitor and everything and basically dock this machine and use it as a low-power desktop. So the performance of it is good. I haven't noticed any issues there. It doesn't seem slower or faster than any of the other Apollo Lakes, which is perfectly fine. The thermals are excellent. It tops out at 70 degrees, so they put a nice large heatsink on there. If you've seen in my unboxing, you can have a look at the internals there, and they've done a good job of things. Very good build quality overall. So the screen is good, touch accuracy as well. Very good. No issues with the touch screen whatsoever. So it's not fully laminated, which is a shame, but that would have probably pushed up the price even higher. And as it stands, this is quite an expensive device. It's selling for around 300 and even over 300 US. So there is a bit of a deal breaker that hopefully Cube are going to address. They're going to fix this, and that is that the battery meter, that on my unit now, before it would only stop charging at 89%, and now it is 50%. But if I run that battery down right past 0%, it'll just keep going and going and going. So the battery meter is reporting things incorrectly. It should run for around 7 to 8 hours, which it has in previous days that I've been using it. It's just recently that this problem has popped up. So to me, I would say hold off if you're going to buy one of these. Wait and see if they're going to fix that, if they're going to release a BIOS update, and hopefully the second batch will have that problem fixed. I'm pretty sure they will do that. Now there is another minor con, and that is the power button placement can be annoying. so I set that to do nothing. And the other thing is, of course, that as a tablet at almost 1.7 kilos, it's just super heavy, and really I find myself using it very little as a tablet, mostly as a notebook with a touchscreen, which is great. So I do hope to see you back on the channel with more upcoming reviews that I'm working on currently. I've got the Mi Notebook Air, the 12.5 inch 2017 model. Should be coming out hopefully this week or next. And if you do have any questions, please let me know as always down in the comments. Bye for now.